All right, welcome back, y'all. Street Academy Podcast.
Hey.
Keep one foot in the academy and one foot in the streets. We are back. I'm at J. Paul Grant, John Jeezy, John Greasy, John Grenzel in the building.
Hey, I'm Amber Kamila on Instagram at Amber Kamila, Kamilah, and now at Relearn Everything. More to come on that.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
And I am Jackie at Jackie Demission on all of the things.
All of the things. And we are here with y'all with another episode. Excited about this one. This one, man. Woo, it's been a lot going on the past couple of weeks. It's been a lot. We've been texting and going back and forth, but we finally was able to sync up our schedules together to give y'all another give y'all another episode. And yeah, this is interesting. So your girls, CardiB and Megan, it's just been an interesting.
There's a lot of girls that we got to talk about.
Yeah, it's a lot of things, but it's gonna come together. And so I just think it's wild how in the past couple of weeks we've seen the spectrum of like Black womanness. You know what I'm saying? We've seen the spectrum of Black woman creativity, of Black, of the dynamics to which Black women can and will express themselves. Going from Beyonce's Black is King. We were gonna try to give y'all a whole episode just on that. You know what I'm saying? Then right after that, WAP drop. You know what I'm saying? And that WAP drop, that that shook the world. And then right after that, Kamala Harris, is now, possibly the next vice president of the United States, the first Black woman vice president of the United States. Like, that's crazy. So I'm like, wow. And we was just like, yo, let's just put all of that in one conversation and just talk about, what that means, what it looks like, the controversy around, some of these, or all of these different things. Actually, it's been critiques on all of that. So I'm like, wow, let's just have this whole episode just on Black women and what y'all doing and what it means and how people feel about it. And yeah, let's just do it.
Let's go. I feel like this is the ladies' night episode.
The ladies' night.
Ladies' night. Because this is what this is. It's like, it's so many different types of women who we're about to discuss. And that's cool.
The break came on.
So I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
So should we start? So how should we start? Should we go in order of like what was like Beyonce dropped first, then WAP, then Kamala, or?
You know what? I think it would be interesting if we start with just the nature of critiquing the Black woman. What does it mean to critique the Black woman?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Because people have, first start with just that, because some would suggest that like we need to pull off the critique because they're Black women, and then also their critique then turn into misogynoir,
Right.
So, okay.
I think that's interesting. I haven't decided.
Yeah,
our resident. I feel like Jackie, you are more of a theorist in this area. I do.
Jackie Demission, you gotta live up to that. That's your thing. That's you. That's you.
I would start with, what are your thoughts about critiquing Black women in general, and where does it start bordering on misogynoir? Or is that the correct pronunciation of that word?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh, that's a good one. And I don't feel like I'm an expert. I feel like I look to so many other people for guidance in this area about how to just understand Black womanhood and Black femininity, and how it is continuously critiqued in ways that are negative and harmful. And I think there's like this one like class of folks, if class is the right, or like one group or like one like narrative that's like, Black women are above critique or beyond critique because they're Black women. Like everything that is critiqued about a Black woman is taken up as misogynoir. And I don't think that that's necessarily so, but I do think that there's that gray area between how Black women are critiqued that delves really squarely into the area of misogynoir. I think like when folks lean on some of those age-old tropes of like the angry Black woman, when the critiques start to delve into how a person like looks, those are the things that I consider misogynoir. But I think that that's only like scratching the surface of what it can mean as well, because so many, like, as Black folks, we get the nuance and the subtlety of how racism works. Like, you know, even as simple as how someone looks at you in a store signals racism to us. And I think for women, you know, like the subtlety of how people look at us and engage us as like sexual beings when we are not asking to be sexual beings, like we have not consented to that. Like that's part of the misogynoir as well. But I also feel like, you know, I look to other people to help me articulate what that means, because I don't consider myself a gender scholar. I consider myself a expert on my own lived experience. And
okay, that works.
Yeah, that's the extent that I got.
How do you feel, Amber? I guess as a Black woman, and within your lived experiences, what's the line between? Well, number one, should Black women be critiqued specifically by Black men? And then even to go further than that, by white people or white men, how expansive are we going to say Black women should and can be critiqued? And then if so, what is the line, for I guess those groups, for Black men and then non-Black people? What is the line where it goes from critique to misogynoir or racism or sexism?
I think first it just goes to the question of critique, period. And when you're critiquing something. And so you remember our episode about J. Cole and No Name, and how I forget the catchy way that I put it at the end, but I said like connection must precede correction.
Yeah.
And so I feel like first, before we even get to critiquing something, you question what is your real connection to whatever that thing is. And I think if you have an authentic connection to that thing, it's not just going to be about correcting for the sake of correcting it. It's correcting it or critiquing it or analyzing it in order to bring something greater out of it. It's not to just like kind of scrutinize the thing. So I think that's one of the first things. I think it may be that it's even part of where the line becomes that separates misogynoir from just plain criticism, which is to say, you don't even know me well enough to even talk to me about this. It's that thing, so it's just like, you're just kind of looking at me in trope versions in a stereotypical form. And so how can you even critique me, because you really don't have a connection, right? And so I think that's the first part of it. It's just like, okay, when we begin to critique anything, what is my real connection to this? What is my real purpose? It makes me think about the concept of how people say, I'm calling somebody out. I remember once hearing somebody say, instead of calling people out, call them in. And calling a person in is different in that it's just like, it's saying that I care about you. I care about what you're doing. And so I think for me, I would want to first start with the approach of, am I just critiquing for the sake of critiquing? Or am I trying to call something in, and am I trying to come closer to something? Am I really trying to connect with something? So when it comes to Black women in particular, since that's what we're talking about, I want to start with saying I'm a Black woman and I care a lot about a lot of Black women, and I'm very familiar with this experience of a Black woman. So it's not a disconnected critique of a Black woman and a Black woman's experience. It's personal to me. I love Black women. I love myself. And so let me start there. This is not in an effort to scrutinize for the sake of scrutinizing. It's because I care about representations of Black women, period. I care about how all of everything that we're talking about is going to affect Black women because I'm one of them, and because I also love a ton of them, and all of this affects me too. So it's based in love, and I feel like love is important. And even though that could seem like woo-woo, it's just like, that's the point of it. I'm not just critiquing just because it's like I want to be academic about it. It's because I care about this shit. Right. Anyway, so that's the first preamble. Okay. So with that said, if you love somebody, you want them. Love is about freedom. First, you can't force a person to be something that just because you want them to be something, that's controlling, and love isn't about control. And so however, you want that person to flourish as much as they can. You want them to be the best that they can. You want them to live their greatest quality of life, right? And so when I think about critique can be necessary in that you want a person to expand themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm looking at correction or the calling in for the sake of expansion, right? All right. So for that reason, I think it's perfectly fine for Black women to be critiqued from a place of love. I think it's totally fine for Black women to be corrected from a place of love, not just from a place of analytical scrutiny. So I feel like that's fine. What I don't appreciate, going back to the first point, is people who are not connected enough to the Black female experience to be able to actually critique it or correct it in ways that are actually valuable, and that actually seek to expand whatever Black woman is being in the center of that analysis, rather to pull her down in some way. That is not the point. So now getting specific, when I think about even just our conversation about J. Cole and No Name and how that was a Black man critiquing a Black woman, it's just like, was this with the intention of expanding her, or was there more of an effort to kind of correct her and put her in her place, you know? And so then we think about the critiques of WAP, and it's like, the range is just so there, you know, with people just saying these women are filth, this trash, to like they're empowering women. And so to me, no matter the critique, I feel like no matter where you fall on it, I'm like, are you coming from a place of love for these women, wanting them expansion? Now, the expansion means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. However, I think in a lot of ways we can feel the spirit of it, and we know when it's just like these women calling a woman a whore. Well, actually, that's not. It depends on where you fall on that, because calling a woman a whore could just be an occupational characterization. It might not be considered a slur. Perhaps I could say calling a woman a filthy slut. Well, no, that also depends on what you think about a filthy slut. So basically, but you know where you're coming from, because somebody could use slut as a badge of honor, and another person could say, actually, that is a slur you're trying to.
But you feel the energy, you feel the spirit behind what somebody's saying. Yeah.
And so for me, what I don't care for is that energy of like the pulling down, the tearing down of another woman. I'm sensitive to that. You can believe what you want to believe. However, no. And conjunctions are important. And how do you communicate that in a healthy way? Because why are we tearing down anybody? That whole thing stems from white supremacy and us being in a hierarchical culture and stuff. And I feel like as Black people, we're better than that. And I don't want us to do that. That's a whole lot of preamble to say that I feel like correction comes out of a place of love. And when I think about WAP in particular, I'm just like, I want to understand where CardiB and Meg Thee Stallion are coming from before I just am like, I want to tear them down in any kind of way. And I also want to see where can I identify with them, and where might I not identify with them. And then I can articulate that. And I can have a strong opinion about where I identify and what I agree and disagree with them about without tearing them down as artists. And so when I think about Black is King, it's the same thing. Because no matter what, nobody can deny the work and the effort and the thought that all of them put into the work that they did with producing all of those things.
Right.
Even when it comes to Kamala Harris, wherever you fall on supporting her or not, it's just like she has put in some work, and, you know, she's still another woman who has, you know, there's so much there. It's the same with Candace Owens. So I remember having this conversation about, well, hear me out. It's like,
I'm interested. I'm listening.
As a Black woman, you have like manufactured whatever you needed to do to make it in this world. And as another Black person, you're trying to make it. And you have some of the threads that you've connected aren't ones that I would have connected. But for whatever reason in your world, they make sense and they're giving you space to breathe. So I'm not going to fault you for finding a way to breathe. I can disagree with you on your approach. I can disagree with how you're breathing, but I'm gonna try not, and I'm challenging myself, especially with like Candace Owens, like challenging myself to not just be like what I've seen other people, all of the other like viscerally horrible things that people have said about Candace Owens, because I have felt that some way. It's just like, man, this Uncle Tom, bitch, you know, it's like, I just.
Dave Chappelle was like, I kick her and I stinking pussy.
Right. So it's just like,
well, I mean, but it was a joke. So, you know, I know he.
But if he could have, he probably would. And a lot of people.
So that was wrong? Was that misogynoir? When he said,
yeah, of course. You can't tell. If you tell anybody you're gonna kick them in their pussy, come on.
But I know comedy has a way of being able to kind of skate along those lines. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
it's just funny misogyny. It's still misogyny.
Funny misogyny.
Right.
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 Yeah.
I mean, if you threaten
she laughed. She was like, "It's funny. I love Dave Chappelle. I'm a fan. So, you know, she know he's not gonna really do it,
But Candace Owens, she falls on the wrong side of like opinion and history 99% of the time anyway. So if she thinks it's funny, then I mean, if she agrees with something, I'm probably gonna disagree with it.
Yeah.
So all that's a whole setup to just say, I want to like look at our women from a place of love first, and as a Black person, from a place of understanding first, before I just start pointing down like all the things that I agree or disagree with.
And it's interesting because I know shortly after the J. Cole No Name video that we did, the episode that we did, if y'all haven't seen it, go back and check it out. It's really good. I listened to some other people talk about it, and I know, so a couple things are going through my mind. One thing that's going through my mind is Michael Eric Dyson, so I'm gonna talk about him. Another thing that's going through my mind is Tupac's I Wonder Why They Call You Bitch. Both of those are going through my mind because when I think of Tupac's song Wonder Why They Call You Bitch, I think about how I remember sending that song to one of my colleagues, and she hated it. She was like, "Oh, this is so bad." She broke it all the way down, boo, boo, boo. And I can understand now that I understand more about Black feminist thought, about misogyny, why I get it. But I think at that time, and coming from where Tupac was coming from, I think he really wrote that song out of a critique, but I think he meant well in doing it. And the song Wonder Why They Call You Bitch is, I don't know, have y'all ever heard that song?
I haven't. And so I'm looking up the lyrics right now.
Yeah. I think he did it as a way of critiquing women who, who do things wrong or who put themselves out there in a way to where they get negative feedback. Of course, as we know now, and that was in the 90s, and we know now a lot of that is systemic, and he didn't really deal with a lot of that in the song, and he wasn't necessarily saying, well, y'all the reason why these things are happening to you, but he's saying, listen, when you go into a party and you literally let 5, 6, 7 dudes run a train on you, when you're doing all of these things that he has seen Black women do, he's saying, you kind of wondering, well, why they call you bitch. And I'm not saying it's okay for them to call you a bitch, but what I'm saying is when you're doing all of these things, it doesn't really look good. You know what I'm saying? Again, obviously, the Jonathan now is like, a lot of the way in which he came at it, a lot of his verbiage, his perspective definitely should be heavily critical. But I do think the spirit in which, in what he was trying to do, I think that was honest. I think that was pure. And I know that a lot of people might say the reason why they might be okay with Tupac critiquing a Black woman as opposed to Luke, you know what I'm saying, Uncle Luke from Miami critiquing a Black woman, is because Tupac has actually shown how he has love and appreciation and respect for Black women. Keep Your Head Up, one of his biggest hits, Dear Mama, Brenda's Got a Baby, all of these songs, I mean, things that he's done. He was the one that really put the story of Latasha Harlins. He elevated that story of the death of that sister to, you know, to major media outlets. And so that was amazing. Still, even to this day, a lot of people talk about that story, largely because Tupac, you know what I'm saying, brought that story help bring that story to the forefront. So Tupac has shown his love and appreciation and respect for Black women. So even if he critiques it and doesn't do it in the right way, or it can always be challenged, he's shown that. So he's shown that he has the connection for the correction. You know what I'm saying? Michael Eric Dyson, I know when him and Angela Rye, and if y'all go see that, y'all will see, I showed y'all will see they literally said everything we said in the podcast. Like they said everything that we hit. Like Michael Eric Dyson points, them was my points. Angela Rye points, that was their points. I'm like, yo, like for real, like we own it, bro.
Own to something.
Like we own to something right now. Anyway,
ours came out before theirs did. Just as
ours came out before theirs did.
We did not. Yeah, we didn't copy them.
Feel free to have us on your show, but yeah, like ours came out first, straight up. Anyway, but like, you know, much respect to them and Michael Eric Dyson. Although him and Angela Rye disagreed on the J. Cole and No Name piece, Michael Eric Dyson was like, listen, you could call me Massage Noir. Half of y'all don't even know what that means, but you can call me that if you want to. But he wrote a whole book called Why I Love Black Women. He has put in a lot of work in terms of putting Black women on, mentoring Black women, mentoring Angela Rye, helping Black women to achieve, you know, some of the success that they've wanted to achieve, and they've come through him and he's helped them. Now, and I think that should be that should be commended. However, I don't think that just because you do things for a group of people that now it's like, all right, because I've done these things for you, I could just say what I want. You see what I'm saying? Like you still gotta, like, doing things for somebody and then feeling like you can say whatever you want about them. That's not connection before correction. That's exploitation. You know what I'm saying? That's like saying, all right, look at what I did and now I own you. It's like, nah, you still can't do that. But you can assess the spirit of somebody through the things that they do for people. You know what I'm saying? You know a tree, I think that's in the Bible, you know a tree by the fruit that it bears. So you know how people feel about you based on the fruit that bear, you know, the fruit that they bear. And so, you know, I look at Michael Eric Dyson, and whether a person agrees or disagrees with him and the whole J. Cole and No Name thing, I don't think that a person can really say that he doesn't like Black women or he doesn't support Black women. Same thing for Tupac. You know what I'm saying? Granted, he has his, you know, his pros and cons, and he definitely has some songs that aren't all that great. But I think as a whole, you could tell that that there is this spirit of acceptance, I believe, that both of them have. And so I say all that to kind of continue your point, Amber, about the connection before the correction. I do think that it is a slippery slope, particularly for Black men when we critique Black women. I think it is a fine line.
I said, cough, cough, Joe Biden, Black people are different.
Oh, right.
Black people are entitled to be different because we're actually not the same.
Not the same. He said, what did he say? Unlike the Hispanic population, or unlike the, I was like, bro, you kidding me? Like, nigga, you could have just not said nothing. Like, like you could have just been like, the Hispanic population of, you know, a very diverse group. Unlike the Black, nigga, what do you, bro? I swear, dog. Are you kidding me? Anyway, I don't even want to talk about Joe Biden right now, but he just better be glad he got Kamala, because a lot of people was like, listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be man. Listen, man. This Street Academy. I'm gonna tell y'all for real. I'm gonna come back to what I was saying. I'm gonna tell y'all for real though. If he ain't had Kamala, I'm gonna just say that I would never vote for Trump.
Okay.
I would never vote. I
was about to just close my laptop. Like, I would never vote for Trump.
I would not do that. I probably would never vote for Kanye. Probably would never vote for Kanye. It's like Trump is definitely 100%. Kanye's like 90%. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a good chance I wouldn't vote for him. But third party or something, I probably would have went third party. And I know people say that's throwing your vote away. You throwing your vote away to one or the other. I don't care. If I don't like you, I don't like you. Period. Like, why should I have to do something just because everybody else? No. And you saying some messed up stuff, man, for real. Nah, man, forget that. So, listen. But he got Kamala now, so you know what I'm saying. I gotta support the sister. I might go ahead and I don't know. That might be a whole nother episode about politics, and I want to bring some people on to help that conversation. But
yeah, we gonna get there.
Yeah, but that's how I feel, bro. Like I was really on that tip. Like y'all ain't gonna make me vote for Joe Biden. If I don't like that nigga, I don't like that nigga. I don't necessarily gotta vote for Trump, but shit, like whatever. Like I'm out. No, ain't happening. Anyway. What was I talking about? Oh, happy. Yes. And the relearning, man. We gonna get to that, but I need to know. I read it. I just kind of, got a little gist of the different things you got going on. I was like, all right, let me see what's going on.
I need to see what's going on. Yeah. What does this even mean, Amber?
Relearn everything. Really, I want it to be a movement of people committed to relearning everything, because I think we're coming to a point. Well, what has definitely happened is this pandemic has illuminated for us how much just isn't right and how much isn't working, and that the status quo is not working, hasn't actually been working. And this whole pandemic just exacerbated it for all of us. Right. And so, but I had started relearn everything before the pandemic hit, because it's just like all of these isms, it's like we have to be very intentional about getting ourselves out of them. So racism, internalized racism, especially, I feel capitalism, perfectionism, sexism, all of the isms, all of those things, I think we need to take a deliberate approach to relearning how we approach life. Even though we might feel like we're against these isms, we still don't take kind of I would say a methodological, what's the word? A methodical approach, or really looking at it like applying teaching and learning principles to relearning the stuff that we know by this age. It's like, wait, what is body shaming? Why do I think about this in this way? What about when it comes to food and health and all of these things that we have learned as we are older, that actually none of that's true, including the way religion works. It's so many different things that we have learned that just actually don't work. But like as adults, how can we be very intentional about relearning this thing? And so relearn everything is about that. It's like all of us together, a community of people who say like, I want to choose a different way of living and thinking intentionally. Like capitalism and productivity and like grind culture. That's a huge thing. I think we've seen that a lot come out during the pandemic, where people are like, during this time, if you don't come out of this with a skill, then, you ain't really, it's just like, where's that coming from?
We are in a pandemic.
Why do you feel like I have to come out of this, like, leveled up in a sense, when it's just like, that's a thing. And that comes from America being a slave state and being capitalistic and thinking and looking at people as human resources.
Right.
If you look at the idea, why in the world would human resources be called human resources unless you look at human as capital?
Right.
Because you're looking at people as capital. So it's like human. Literally, the way we look at humans is as a resource. That's crazy. But it's so embedded in us, we don't even question it. And so we value people based on what they can bring to a company. Sorry, you can tell I can keep going. But we value people based on what they do, based on what they produce. That's why we call them a human resource. And that's why it's just like we value ourselves by the output that we have. And that's why we're freaking going crazy when you're not producing stuff.
No, I was going to say, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think what I really was hearing from you was the importance of being in community, like you said, with people you trust and with people who trust you. So, we all know the difference between intent and impact. And, you know, if you know someone and if you've been in community with them, you're probably a little bit more likely to give their intent a little bit more grace, even if their impact didn't land the way that they were hoping it did. Right. And then you're able to have that conversation of like, well, this is, you know, where you were offensive. This is where you could have said something different. And I even think about, you know, to your point of Tupac, he has a very complex legacy when it comes to the history of women. But I think that people, even now, give his intent a little bit more grace because of some of the things that you mentioned, and because of the way that he engaged with community. Now, you know, there's still some people who are going to say, yeah, we need to pay attention to the impact of his actions with women and some of the things that he said and did, and rightfully so. But at the same time, like, people are able to hold the complexity of who he was and what he did in ways that I don't think get extended to other people who don't have that same level of community and things like that. So
yeah, I agree.
So then I guess going particularly into the topic, the fact that Megan Thee Stallion and CardiB dropped WAP 2 weeks after, a week or 2 weeks after Beyonce drops Black is King.
Yeah.
Which one should black women be? Should black women be Beyonce, or should they be CardiB and Megan?
Black women
should be all of them.
Black women have the freedom to be all of them. And that's actually what the core of feminism is. The core is that you just have the freedom to choose, that nobody is telling me to do either or, but I get to decide. And also, Beyonce was also twerking up in the video. Beyonce was also showing much of her body, and so was many of the other people there. I mean, Beyonce has a history of that, but also in Black is King, there was also lots of flesh, and there was lots of booty shaking, whatever you want to call it, and also celebration of the female form. So it's just like all of that was also happening, just in a different what do I want to call it? A different patina. And so some people seems to be more palatable than others, and it's also about who's delivering the message too. So it's like, and then even when it comes to age range, and like, because Beyonce been in the game a little bit longer, and so you think just that she's connecting it to, you know, history and to Africa, perhaps there's this gloss over it that makes it seem as though this is so much more, I don't know, like erudite or something than what is happening in WAP. You know, not to say that WAP was on some, you know, deeply scholarly things, but just to say that, you know, everything looks different. And also, I don't even know if people are saying like, this is Beyonce, then this is that, as though, I feel like depending on where you're coming from, you're going to critique them. So one person I remember seeing, they were like, well, Beyonce, she let out this demonic material one week, and then Cardi and Megan let out this like super hypersexualized thing another week. Black women can't win. And it's just like, that's a very narrow way of looking at both of those things. And so some people will look at it and say that's the continuum, you know? So I think it's interesting to say, well, what is our continuum and what are we comparing and where do people fall? And because I think almost every person's is slightly different.
Yeah, I remember that part of the Black is King where they said it was demonic. And it, to me, it's so...
That's a whole...
It's so stupid because it's like, so I think about, there's this song by Jay-Z called Young, Gifted, and Black. And there's one line of the song where he says, we real close to the devil here, right? And if you just listen to that line, or if you just read that line where he says, we real close to the devil here, you know, people have been accusing Jay-Z of being 666, Illuminati, all that, calling himself Jehovah, all this stuff. He this, he that, he a devil worshiper. People have been saying that for a long time. And if you just listen to that song, I remember I was reading some comments and somebody said, see, he said we real close to the devil here. He talk about being close to the devil and Satan and blah, blah. And I'm like, but did you look at it in context? Did you listen to anything he said before that line or anything he said after that line? Because if you did, you would have heard right before he said that line, he said he's actually critiquing white people who listen to his music. And he's saying, white people, y'all listen to our music, y'all love our music, y'all bounce to our music, but y'all don't go through the things that black people go through in the neighborhoods where I'm getting these stories from. And so when y'all see God, y'all tell God, we real close to the devil here. The devil is next to us. We going through hellish stuff over here. We going through poverty. We going through racism. We going through police brutality. We going through all of these violence every single day. Tell God, and he says, tell God we real close to the devil here. Like, come save us, come get us, come do something about this. And so if you listen to that, that's why he says we real close to the devil. I say that because in the same thing in The Black is King, that part where they said was real demonic, if you listen to the words, she's actually telling a story about some evil spirits or something, or something evil that's happening at the time. And so because she's telling this whole story in Black is King, and she's talking about evil that is going on in the world, evil that's happening in the story, that's why you have these things that so-called look like voodoo and demonic and all this other kind of stuff. When in reality, voodoo is not demonic. And if we do the history of voodoo in Africa, we see that it is not, they're not conjuring up demonic spirits or devils or anything like that. But that's our Western, that's how we've been conditioned by white people to think that things that are African and things that don't look like pure white European Jesus are demonic. You know what I'm saying? And so when people said that, I was like, did y'all listen to the words during that?
They didn't.
Or were you following the storyline she was telling? No. She's not doing that. She's talking about evil. So she's showing you what people look and personify as evil, or what even in African culture may personify evil. She's showing you that in the story, and then she goes on with the rest of the story. So I'm like, y'all not.
And see, that, I mean, I feel like that's a part of what you just said. Did you actually listen to what they were saying? One part of internet culture that is ridiculous to me is we just don't let stuff sit for a second. So like Black is King came out the next day, people got it's just like, why don't you take a minute? You could not have digested it this fast. You could not have looked at all of her references, everything that all the different musicians, all of the different symbols, all of the different cultures. You did not have enough time to digest and process that. So just hold your thoughts for a second, like pause. And the same with WAP too. It's just like, why don't you take a second to just think, just pause. Take a moment. And it goes back again to the idea of like, what do you really want to do? Are you trying to just scrutinize for the sake of doing it? Or are you actually trying to seek expansion for your own self? You know, to say like, help me to really gain understanding about this thing. What is it about my visceral response to this that is puzzling to me? You know, why is this, why am I responding this way to this particular material? What might this person actually be trying to communicate? I wonder what messages they're trying to put in here. I wonder what audience they envisioned when they first created this. I wonder what state of mind they were in when they first created this. If you do that to even just the first 5 minutes of Black is King, you could just start really trying to say, Beyonce really has something that seems important to her. This is a departure from her typical style, if I even know what Beyonce does. It's just like, I just don't think we take the time just to reflect, because everything's trying to move so freaking fast. Everybody just wants to get tweeted and like become viral so that you can have followers and so you can become an influencer or something. I don't get it. Or you just want people, you just want to say zingers or something. I don't know what the value system is exactly right now of internet culture, but it's very tiring because people just get out there just saying stuff. Like, I'm sure y'all saw the post where they were like, why would she release it on Disney Plus? Disney Plus not even accessible in Africa. And that was quickly debunked as a lie. I was like,
on the whole continent. Disney Plus ain't nowhere on the whole continent.
The whole continent. So
how do you know Disney Plus is nowhere on it?
And so my question too was, it's just like, it shows a complete like lack of, one, people are just reposting stuff that's not true. It's just like nobody's fact checking anything. And then they, I think in that same tweet, they said like, or the same post, they were like, Beyonce hasn't even like performed or anything in Africa. And she had just performed, like the year before, whatever. And it's just, or she hasn't done a tour there. But what I mean to say is, it's just like people aren't fact checking. That's just an internet problem. But also it's just like, people just run to just say stuff. And it's just like, it shows to me a very, very shallow way of thinking, because I'm like, if it were true that Disney Plus was not on in Africa, let me first ask myself, didn't they just launch this whole video platform not too long ago? Might it take some time to just get to every country in the world? I don't actually know how telecommunications and that kind of industry even works. I don't know what kind of laws there are in different countries. And also, let me not center the US again. Let me not center being American again to think that everybody has access to the same things that I have access to. Right. One. Number two, that anybody would even care. Does Africa even want Disney Plus? But then again, not just that, I'm also looking at Africa monolithically. I'm not looking at it as a whole bunch of different governments.
Different countries and governments.
Different countries, different governments.
Well,
so you just
is very different from sub-Saharan Africa. Like, is South Africa different from all?
Well, to me, even that critique is like, Disney Plus ain't even available on Africa. It's just like, it's like you're showing how American you are right now. You're not showing how Black you are. You're not showing your loyalty to Blackness. You're showing like you are very American and US centric to think that the world even gives a fuck about anything that's going on over here. Just because they don't have access to it. Africa probably got access to dill pickle chips by Golden Flake that I love. Why Africa don't got dill pickle chips? Nigga, maybe they don't like dill pickle chips. And I don't know. Africa might. All the continents. I mean, I don't know. Because when I was over there in Kenya, they had salt and vinegar chips. I was like, yes. I don't know what other countries might have dill pickle chips. I don't know. But what I'm going to say is I'm not going to expect my preferences and tastes to be represented all across the world.
Right.
And then I'm not going to use that to justify why this artist is invalid in their work.
Yeah.
Sorry. That might have just... Sorry for saying fuck like that. If you want to take that out, that's fine.
No, I'm keeping all this. What you mean? This is good.
You know what's interesting about that is that I think Black is King is one of those pieces that I think is an attempt to be timeless. And I appreciate that about Beyonce's growth as just like an artist and a creative and like a visionary creative that, you know, I think about the songs that she had with Destiny's Child, and even when she first came out with her first couple of solo albums with songs that were very much centered in the moment and the sound of the moment. And I think now when I think about her latest projects, Lemonade and Black is King, for me in particular, stand out as pieces of art that are meant to be taken up beyond just the time that they were dropped in. And the visuals of both of those albums, you know, speaking about Black women, and I think about Lemonade, you know, just the visuals of that, and then the visuals of Blackness around Black is King were just so beautiful. So I so appreciated that element of Black is King, and definitely, you know, Lemonade as well. So.
So then what were your thoughts about Black is King? Now, since we know that you have established connection.
Yes, I have established the connection. First of all, just off the top, it was dope. I thought the creativity was incredible. It was beautiful scenery. The music was wonderful. It was dope. I love the people that she had. I like the Afro beat sound that she had. I love Tierra Whack. Tierra Whack is so dope.
Did you like the album before the visual album came out?
I did not like the album too much.
I was listening. It's the same music.
Yeah, I know.
I think when she put that visual on it, that really helped. But the song already, that was something that was on my playlist. Like I've stuck with that song. The rest of the songs, I didn't stick with as hard. But at least all of the song already, I was like really into that. But now that I've listened back to it, I'm like, how did I miss this? So I think the visual helped a lot.
Yeah, the visuals helped because the Lion King, The Gift, I listened to the album and I didn't really like it. I thought it was okay, but in comparison to Lemonade, in comparison to Four, in comparison even to the Beyonce self-titled album, which I thought was pretty cool. I was like, I wasn't really feeling it too tough. But I like but I did like a lot of the production. I like the production on it. A lot of the music and the visuals helped. Again, I thought it was like Lemonade, but to a whole nother level, just in terms of colors and lighting and dancing and the costumes or the what they were wearing, the wardrobe. I thought it was really, really good. I thought what she was saying, the poetry in it was so good. It was deep. I thought all of that was so good. The critique that I have about it is that I couldn't really follow the narrative. The thing about Lemonade was it seemed like it had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then it has some stuff in between, and you do your thing, but I could follow where she was going. With Black is King, I couldn't do that. It wasn't as blatant. So it was difficult to find out, okay, so what's happening now? Okay, so she got her son, and then now her son left. Okay, now he in the basket, like he going down with Moses. Okay, so who picked him up? All right, so, and then by the time we got to the end, I'm like,
what happened?
Like I like all the dancing and everything, that you got the choir going, and I like all of that. But what happened to the son at the end? Did he become a king, or is he still in the Nile River? Like, what's going on? So it was harder to follow the narrative. It was harder to follow the story. I don't think it was as well put together in terms of a whole creative concept like Lemonade was. You know what I'm saying? So that was one of the critiques that I have about Black is King. I think it could have been maybe, I guess, a storyline could have, because I didn't know if she was trying to say like her son was Simba, or was it Moses?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what was it? So it was hard.
To Jackie's point earlier about like this being the type of work that's enduring, I think it's also the type of art that's intended to be taken in several times. Okay. I don't see it as like the thing that you see the first time and you catch it all. Absolutely not. I feel like most good movies are that way too, where it's just like you go through and it's just like, I didn't get it, and then it's just like, because it's just like, yes, that first thing was just the first impression. And right. then you might have read some stuff about it, and then now you can go back and have a deeper appreciation for it. And then you watch it again with a deeper appreciation because you start understanding what she actually was doing. I think that happens that's one part of just albums too. It's just like sometimes the first time pass through when you listen to a song or you listen to an album, it's just like, okay, not sure where they were going all the way, but I kind of like this track and I kind of like this track. And then you might go back, and then the more you learn about the artist, or the next time you see a visual with, you're like, okay, I'm beginning to get it. So I feel like Black is King is a piece that is supposed to be partaken several times, because there's just so much symbolism in it, and there's just so many connections, kind of just like Black Panther in some ways. I think this goes much farther than Black Panther, but like I wanted to reference this this Instagram page, Afrovisualism, at Afrovisualism. They actually they took some time to just point out some of the very specific moves that Beyonce was doing in Black is King, which I really appreciate.
As in, like, yes, that she was doing.
Yeah, like just the connections. It's just like, this represents this particular culture, this represents this particular ritual, and so where all of her symbolism was coming from. And so I'll send you guys a post from it, but it's just helpful to follow. Yeah, you can just, and it's just like, it's helpful to see that. But again, that's the idea, that it's just like, this is not the kind of thing that can just be digested in one setting. It's like, this is going to stay with you, and then you got to eat it again because it's so full of so much. And I think if we take the time to do that, now everybody's not committed to taking the time to do that, and you don't have to be, because you can say like, I'm done with it. Like my sister and brother-in-law, they were like, within the first, I don't even know, they said as soon as they saw her walking on the beach, they were like, no. And I was like, that's like the first minute or two.
Like the first 2 minutes.
They were like, yeah, we cut it off. We said we couldn't do it. But they're also not Beyonce fans. And so I'm like, this is not for them. Right. They won't be able to get into it. So that's fine. But if you are interested in that and you're committed to doing that, then I think it's like the narrative wasn't clear enough. So it's like, well, why wasn't it clear enough? Was that intentional? Was it were there spaces, were there cues that I missed because of things that I didn't pick up? That's how I look at it. I'm just like, I'm with you though, John. The narrative wasn't very clear to me. And I feel like if with an artist at this level, them having done it in a way where they've thought about this. Clearly, there's been a lot of work put into this.
Right.
If this is not exactly clear, I might guess that that's intentional. That lack of clarity is intentional from the artist. And I think even as you know, in your music, like when it comes to the different words that you choose, and some of your raps and stuff, it's just like you're very particular with those words. And it might not be completely transparent to the listener at first, and it might feel opaque. But like, I want you to think about that word a little bit more. And that's why I chose to use that particular reference there, you know? And so I think I look at it like that.
Well, question for you all. Do you feel like the critique of Beyonce beyond her artwork was fair or valid or useful in any way? Or was it just like all misogynoir or just off the mark?
Wait, what were people saying? I guess I missed some of it. That was beyond the artwork? What was people saying?
I guess part of it was the demonic part when they was talking about that.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So like so many people, particularly people in the church, were like, you know, Beyonce is of the devil, and we can see that based on in her work. No Name and the critique of Beyonce the capitalist, I think are two of the main critiques that I heard like lodged against her.
So and so the question is, what do we think about those critiques?
Yeah, like, do you think that it's fair, that it was fair and valid to like wield those critiques against her beyond just like focusing on the art?
I mean, I think it's fair to critique people. I think that's okay. You know, I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, you have a voice, you know, and if you have a thought about something, you know, you should voice it. I always think that it goes further if it's, you know, if it's at least to some degree comprehensive. I think it goes further if you, kind of going back to educational theory, like, you know, you have positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement just when you're dealing with, you know, with kids, you know, like J. Cole say, talk to us like we children. So, you know, I feel like the same way with Beyonce. I have my critique of, you know, I didn't really think that the narrative was clear. To me, it wasn't as impactful in terms of me understanding it and feeling it like Lemonade was. And it could have been because Lemonade was more so focused on Black Southern culture, and this was African culture, and so I'm much more closer to that. That could be the reason, right? So I think with critiques, I think it's important when you do positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. I think it's okay if you know, if you assess something, call it out, but then at the same time, look at yourself. I think when you do all of these different things, when you do introspection within your critique, when you look at your own bias within your critique, when you do all of these things, then people can see it and they can accept your analysis better, right? Than if you just constantly look at what you're doing, look at what you're doing, look at what you're doing. You know, like I think that's better. So I didn't agree with the whole capitalist thing. I mean, she's a capitalist. Jay-Z's a capitalist. I mean, that's clear. They want to make money. You don't come from a billionaire or a billionaire family and not capitalize on stuff. Like, you know, so I mean, that's clear. But that's not the first thing I thought about, and the whole demonic stuff. I already said how I felt about that. So yeah.
And I guess for me, again, everything that John was saying, and then I think I love that you said like introspection as a part of criticism and as part of the critical process. I feel like that's missing a whole lot, because I think I don't want to invalidate anyone's experience or their opinion because it's just like I don't agree with it, you know, because it's just like that's what they see. And so then the question after that is like, okay, well, why is it that you see that? And I think that's what people aren't asking. So it's just like, it's fair for you as a Christian to say, I thought what I saw some demonic symbolism. So it's like, okay, so what was demonic? Let's be specific. It was this particular thing. Okay, why is that demonic to you? Well, because red, a devil has always appeared as red for me. Where did that image come from? Well, anytime I was a child, I grew up seeing a red devil. Who were the artists?
The whole relearning joint. Like now you're relearning certain things. So
exactly. So it's just like once we start going to origins to saying it's fair that you made that association, and now question the association and keep going back. I don't want to deny you the truth of your experience. Your experience is that particular image is associated with demonism, and that's because that's what has been presented to you as demonism. And so if that is, then why would you not associate that with it being demonic? Of course you would. But what we're learning, what John, you were saying, we've been learning in our later years that a lot of what was presented as demonic was actually just a demonizing of African spirituality. And so now that we see that, it's just like what I'm seeing now, different from what I would have even seen 5 years ago, is African spirituality. I'm not seeing just
voodoo and all of that.
Yeah. No, but at the same time, voodoo is not a bad word to me anymore.
Right. It's not no more. Exactly.
Because now I understand that voodoo was also demonized, and it was also made to be the devil. So now it's just like, if that's voodoo symbolism, or if that's a voodoo ritual, I'm not going to associate that with that being demonic, because now I understand that voodoo was a derivative of African spirituality that actually made its way to Haiti and then on to the continent. So now I'm having different associations, and so now I can be more critical about it. But if you don't have that vernacular, then I'm not going to fault you at this point for not knowing. And I think that's the thing. It's just like, this is fair to you, so ask the next question. Where did that come from? That's why, John, you saying introspection comes after that. It's just asking myself, well, why is it that I see that? What is it about that? Where did my image of that come from? And how much truth is in that image? So, and then to the point of, the one part of Black is King that I did struggle with was when Jay-Z came in, and it was very much like it was the royalty and all of that. And they did have the white butler, which I deeply appreciated. And so I did feel like there was a capitalist message in that, and I have to grapple with that, because I'm not okay with the idea of a billionaire. Because I was reading this post once that was saying, like, for you to be a billionaire, you had to use slave labor. You have had to exploit people in order for you to be able to amass that amount of wealth. Like, you use it. You
mean now, or like from back then?
Even now. Like, because it's just like a bit, and I think, again, did I talk about this one time before? It's just like, we don't really have a grasp on how much $1 billion is in comparison even to $1 million. So it's the idea of 1 million seconds, I think. So let me do an exercise. How long do you think 1 million seconds is?
1 million seconds? What, a week? Maybe? No, a week? No, a day? A couple days?
I'm gonna say 3 weeks.
Okay. Like 1 million seconds. 1 million seconds is 11 days, 13 hours, 46 minutes, and 40 seconds. How much do you think 1 billion seconds is?
Oh, so if 1 million is 11 days.
Times
just go with yourself. Like,
that's 900. Oh.
That's 3 years?
What? So you say 3 years. What do you say, John?
Ooh, I would go with that, probably even longer, because 1 million is 11, and that's
11 days. 1 million is 11 days.
900 million. That's 911 days.
Yeah,
that's a couple.
It's more than that.
So 1 million seconds is 11 days, 13 hours. 1 billion seconds is 31.5 years. That's how much bigger 1 billion is than 1 million. But we don't have the conception of that. 1 million seconds is 11 days. 1 billion seconds is 31.5 years.
Wow.
We don't really conceptualize the difference between 1 million and 1 billion. So for you to be a billionaire, the wealth is immeasurable.
Wow.
In our eyes, like, it's not immeasurable. Let me not say it, because we're actually measuring it. The wealth is unfathomable. We really don't have a grasp on how much more it is.
Wow.
So it's like, there's a lot that goes into amassing that type of wealth.
Wow. So I kind of want to, because I know we've been talking about Black is King and Beyonce for a while.
Yeah.
And
WAP. Sorry.
Yeah, and I kind of want to get to WAP But I also want to know how Jackie felt about Black is King. So if you want to come back to that, we can. But I kind of want to know your initial thoughts about, because it took us a minute, but we had to almost create the theoretical framework around critique and what that means. And now that we've done that, that's how you know we like hella. We had to create, you know what I'm saying? You got to do theoretical work first. Now that we've done that, now that we set that stage, now we can kind of go into it. So I'm gonna have to shorten that in the edits. But now that we've done that, now we can go into into these topics. And I'm really interested to know you specifically, Jackie, how you felt about WAP. Like, as I was thinking about this episode, I'm like, I want to know what Jackie think about this. I already gotta know how Amber ran, you know what I'm saying?
Make it right now.
Amber from Atlanta, Georgia. When that It's Some Hoes in This House came on, oh, that took me. I was like, it's some hoes in me. It's some hoes.
I'm surprised by that one.
If you see, go point up. And in middle school, we used to point at the girls when the song came on, and if you pointed at the girls, you'd be like, who you calling the motherfucker? Oh, I ain't no motherfucker. I'll beat your ass, nigga.
Yeah.
Like, that was the song, man. It's some hoes in there. It's some hoes. Man, what?
Let me say, not just in middle school, because y'all friend pointed me out as he was singing that song the other day, and I had to go right there with him. Like, I know you ain't talking to me. So,
listen, I was like, I want to know how Jackie felt about this. This is good.
I had an appreciation for WAP. I think I grew more to appreciate it as I heard the critique of it, because it struck me as such a misogynistic sentiment against WAP that I felt it made me love the song even more. Whereas, like, I think if it just came out and didn't have such a negative backlash, I just would have been like, oh, okay, another song that people like, if I hear it somewhere, I might, twerk a little, and then that's about it. But really, the only thing that I did not appreciate about the song was Kylie Jenner's appearance. I could have done without that. I still can do without, her colonizing yet another Black space. But, outside of that, like, I had an appreciation for WAP, and so much of the counter to the backlash has been like, niggas been singing about stuff that's even more raunchy than WAP. So, save your critiques, put them in your book bag, and keep it moving, because no one is trying to hear these critiques that are just like lodged against women for no reason. And like it was crazy to me, because so much of the critique was just like, they're singing about these songs, they're glorifying, being uneducated and being, out in these streets and whatnot. And I'm like, CardiB has a literal husband and a child. Like, she did everything the way that y'all said that she should. She got married, then she had a kid, and
they were a cheater.
Fixed her, like, did everything.
Down ass, riding ass chick. So what do y'all want?
What do you want?
I forgot about that. He cheated on her. She stayed with him. She was a ride or die.
She's ride or die.
So true.
Multiple times.
Wow. She's a lady in the streets and a freak in the bed. Well, actually, she's not a lady in the streets. She's not a lady in the streets either, I guess. I don't know.
I've seen her in a couple gowns. At awards.
She be in the gown. Okay.
Right.
That's what
Listen, she could be whatever she wants to be. And with Megan Thee Stallion, like, she talks a lot about being in college. And I'm like, what else do you want? You have a wife and a student of higher education.
They have their own money. So
right.
What do you want?
Like, what do you? I feel like the Tyrese meme right now. Like, what do you want?
What do you want from me?
So, I was over it. I was over the critique. But as far as as far as the song, there were little quotables here and there. You know,
sure.
I don't cook, I don't clean. Let me tell you how I got this ring. You know, I was like, yes, indeed. Tell me, Cardi. Let me get my notebook. Clearly, you're doing something that I might need to write down. So,
I mean, I deeply admired when Megan Thee Stallion said, if he asked me, whose is it? When I ride the dick, I'ma spell my name.
I was still trying to figure that out. I was like, how do you do this?
No, it's totally possible. And so I'm like, okay, sit in the seat.
And we go, I'm like, how do you, that's it.
I mean, you can do it. I'm trying right now. I'm just like, it's just like crip walking, man. It's a new version of crip walking. It's crip.
It's a body.
Oh God, that's kind of crazy. But it's just like, I don't know if there's a such thing as that's a phrase that I don't know if I want to stay. Maybe you can bleep that out. But I'll say it again so you can bleep it out again. It's crip pussying, and I figure it's
crip
the idea of writing with your.
Because when she said it. Now that you bring it up, I'm like, she did say that. I just didn't know how you could do it.
I feel like that's skill, and I think it's interesting, and it's the same way that you just kind of like, you're dancing. It's just the movement of your
the way in which you dance.
Yeah, but it's not just a dance. It's the movement. It's you actually having control enough to be able to, you know, spell something. And I'm just like, oh, I can't wait to try that whenever I get the chance to try that. So, you know, I find that to be very exciting and interesting. Now, John, I'm not going to take offense that you thought that I would just be completely accepting of it because I am a DSGG. Because I am from Atlanta originally. I won't look at that as an overgeneralization.
Right.
To be honest, I just had I just was like, oh, this is very on brand. Like when I first saw it, it's not like I'm not a huge Meg Thee Stallion or Cardi B fan. I do listen to a few of their tracks. A few of their songs are on some of my playlists. So it's not like I'm like a loyal follower of either of them. So I was just like, oh, okay, this is what they do, you know. So I didn't really take it in any kind of way. The visuals were very provocative and stimulating, but I wouldn't say it was like extraordinarily creative or anything where it's just like, oh, I've never seen it. This is so off the charts from what I've seen. And so I think, again, what I find interesting is during this period of COVID, people seem to be that much more, they have more of a visceral response to things. And I think it's because it's a highly emotional time in the world. And so so I think part of the reason why people even respond to George Floyd in the same way that they did is because of the time that we have in our hands, the emotional sensitivity that we have built up over this period of time. Because if that video had come out, I would think even last year, it would have been like, okay, like it's another video. But I think now it's a very interesting time, the way things are being processed in 2020. I think it's different than how it's been processed before. So I want to say that first. I just think like there's something about this period in time that's making everybody kind of like, I just think we're processing things very differently. And then I feel like in a nutshell, my thoughts about it are, I just want, in a perfect world, and it doesn't even have to be in a perfect world, I feel like people have unlimited access to material like that. And if you do not have a mature way of processing media, those types of images can lead to some harmful thinking and behaviors. Mm-hmm. And what I'm sensitive to are, in particular, teachers and parents who feel like, you know, that type of thing is out there for kids and kids won't know how to deal with it and all of that. And, you know, our artists responsible for what kids are going to see nowadays, not necessarily, but what I do know is it's very different from our time, where if you see that kind of video, that's only on like BET Uncut, After Hours. You got to do it. There is a barrier to accessibility. And so there's a barrier to accessibility. And then also the repetition of it. You don't get to see it so frequently. And any information that's repeated, it will create a greater impact on you, and it will do more to shape your thinking and your beliefs. And so we're dealing with a different area of information transmission than when we were growing up. And so when we were children, we did see like the little nasty videos, but you couldn't see them over and 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 over again. And so the way that impressed us is going to be very different than kids nowadays who have easy access to this and can watch it a million times and then begin to shape their understandings of womanhood, sexuality, body image, all those kind of things. So what I think is, because that's a fact of the way that the world is going and the way the world is moving, we need to have something in place to be able to help not just children, because it's adults too, and everyone.
I was gonna say, because out of those 53 million views, I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Like it was 6 or 7 of them might have been mine. Like it's, like, I couldn't just watch it one time. Like you got to be like, oh, let me run it back. I
look at it like that kind of thing.
Like, did y'all see that Drake meme where Drake was going through the WAP house, and y'all know the Drake walk, and he was.
I don't.
He was. Oh, hold on, let me pull it up. I know. I just cut you off, Aaron, bro. I'm gonna let you finish. Let me pull it up.
Maybe do a screen share, because you can share it on your screen.
Oh, I can share it on. Oh yeah, that's right. Let me see if I can pull it up. Go ahead, Amber.
And so, but while you're doing that, the point too is that we need to learn how to be critical consumers of anything, of media. That's the point. Right. It's just media literacy. That's all this is. And so it's just like, we're at the stage now in history where it's just like, the internet is here. It's not going anywhere. Access is a thing. Information is a thing. So how do we become more literate when we're taking in all this information? So it's just like, I think WAP it runs the gamut of feminism. So it's just like, depending on wherever you fall in it, you're going to have a different opinion, you know? And so I feel like I don't even want to get into that as much as I'm like, what does it mean to have media literacy in this day and age, so that I can like maturely take in this information and come to my own opinion about what I think.
Let me tell you something. Me walking through the WAP house. Y'all see? I was crying. I was crying. Okay. I was like, yes, this is me walking through the WAP house. Hey. I was there. I'm sorry. I just had to be.
I'm not familiar with that post. I don't know Drake like that at all.
Oh yeah, that's a famous Drake meme. I forgot where it came from. What video? One of them videos he did. And he was walking like that, and they called it. It's like thousands of memes with it.
It's still funny for me to tell.
Yeah, I saw it. I was crying. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, and then when you talk about the complexities of freedom, it gets even more complicated when it's not only linear but hierarchical, right?
Yes.
When you can look at, sure, I have the freedom to watch or not watch, you know, CardiB or, you know, Megan Thee Stallion, and they have the freedom to put out this, you know, this song and this video, and I have the freedom to critique it and blah, blah, blah. But what happens when and I think you said earlier, you said something about how sometimes one person's freedom is almost another person's oppression or something. You said something along those lines, where what could be freedom to one person is not freedom to another person, which kind of transitions us into Kamala Harris and the complexities of who she is. Because for the AKAs and the HBCU, this is freedom. We like, oh, we got a sister in the White House. We got an AKA in the White House. And she went to Howard, and she Jamaican. So all you hear is, but, you, like, the Jamaicans is happy. I think she part Indian, so the Indians is happy. Everybody happy. But what about the victims of, you know what I'm saying? What about the victims of her, you know, of her criminal justice policies and her criminal justice actions? How do they feel? Because I don't think her being vice president is freedom to them. And I know some people might be looking at me like, John, how you say, you know, just hop on, just be cool with the fact we about to have a black woman vice president. Of course I would love to see a black woman vice president. And again, this isn't necessarily my own personal views, but I'm just trying to expand the thought and say that this is a part of the conversation. And so this kind of goes right into what Amber is saying about the complexities of freedom. And while one group may love Kamala Harris and love the fact that she could be our next vice president, another group may not look at her the same way and some people saying it's anti-black or anti-woman for us to bring that up. And to critique her, since this whole thing is kind of about Black women's critique. Some people might say it's anti-black or anti-woman of us to critique her, period. Or maybe this early in the fact that it was only just announced, a day or 2 days ago. Maybe so. Maybe we need to celebrate a week before we bring it up. Maybe we need to critique it now. I don't know. Jackie, I'm a throw it in.
I always gotta listen. Like I've been saying, my mom, shout out to Marilyn, always said, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And that might sound harsher than I intended to be, but like many young millennial and younger Black folks, Kamala was not my top candidate by any stretch of the imagination. And it wasn't because I didn't want her to be. Like, I saw, the only Black woman who was out there on the Democratic candidate stage, and I wanted her politics to align way more closely with mine. And it was, just so happened to be that they did not. Her politics were a lot more conservative than mine are. And same with Joe Biden, his politics do not align with mine. And so, he was not the candidate that I voted for. Kamala wasn't the candidate that I voted for, even though she had left, early. She might have still been on some of the ballots, but even if she was on the Georgia ballot, like I would not have voted for her. At the same time, I was reflecting earlier that, since 2008, and I guess, even in 2020, I've had the opportunity to vote for a candidate who reflects some part of my identity. And that feels special and symbolic, and would feel even more special and symbolic if all of those folks that I had the opportunity to vote for, whether they were Black, whether they were a woman, if their politics were more aligned with mine, and it wasn't just like a symbolic, well, we have this one identity thing in common, so let me vote for you. But with Kamala, again, I'm not a fan of just being out here critiquing Black women, but I do think that, as we think about what's best for Black folks in 2020 and beyond, we do have to grapple with her politics and how she has, aligned herself with certain stances that are not in the best interest of the Black community, economically, socially. That's something that we have to grapple with. And one of my former students, shout out to Chad, he made this status today that I thought was so profound. And he said, if you are comforting, I'm paraphrasing because I can't quite remember, but if you're comforting yourself by saying that, casting a vote is voting for Ruth Bader Ginsburg's replacement and is voting for all of these federal judges, and that's how you're, validating voting for Biden and Harris at this point, then you also have to say that you're also voting for the next head of ICE who will, arrest immigrants who are coming into this country, and you're voting for the people who are going to drop bombs and send drones to, the Middle East region. And if you credit yourself for the good that the government does, you also have to admit that you're complicit in the bad that the government does as well. And so as you're voting for folks, whether that's Biden and Harris or whoever else, like, you also have to admit to yourself, this person might do some good and might do more good than the current occupant of the White House, but you also have to own up to the fact that the people who get in there will also be doing some things that don't align with your politics for your own local community here in the US and abroad. And some of those actions that they take are not going to be in the best interest of Black people locally and globally.
Barack got hell of blood on his hands. A lot of people don't like to talk about it. But Barack, and just in the Black community, we just kind of, a lot of us just kind of, oh, we ain't gonna really talk about all them drones, and we ain't gonna talk about all them folks that you killed on the continent. On the continent. So, you know, I think that's a really good point. Like, you know, that's just something we don't really like to discuss. But like you said, the occupant of the head of state, you know, the same person that is gonna could do all these positive things, likely is gonna do a lot of, you know, negative as well. Same thing with Bill Clinton and Rwanda, the Rwanda genocide and all of that. So yeah, I think that's a really solid point.
I have a terrible analogy that I'd like to share, because as you were talking, I was actually laughing to myself like, this is horrible, but I think it captures it. And feel free to delete this out of the podcast.
You know, I be keeping all.
So I was like, basically, when it comes to the candidates this go around, and granted, that's if we even believe in this entire system as actually being democratic at all, into the illusion of a two-party system, knowing that it's really one-party system, is it's the elite against everybody else, really. And so there's that whole thing. So it's just like, to vote, not to vote, whatever. But I will say this, it's just like what we have now, I think is slightly different than what we had in 2016, where it's just like, it was like of the evils, which do you choose? This time, I think it's like either you have water, you have dookie water, or you have diarrhea water. Which shit tastes the worst? Don't choose that.
I'm gonna just be dehydrated.
Listen. What?
So it's like dookie water, diarrhea water. Which shit do you want? You gotta choose one.
Oh. But what kind of freedom?
Ain't no juice. Ain't no juice.
It
ain't no Simply Lemonade, nigga.
No. You got dookie water or diarrhea water. Which one are you gonna drink? One's with the mics.
Ain't no wine cooler.
Got no Mike's Hard Lemonade.
It's like crunchy peanut butter or smooth peanut butter. It's like water with chunks, or like just water with just. So you want the dookie water?
Oh gosh. But but the thing about it is, and this kind of leads to, you know, another one of our future episodes, which is, you know, why this whole idea of you telling people to vote, but we're constantly voting for the lesser of two evils. And it's not because you're never gonna, unless you run for office, you're never gonna vote for somebody who you completely agree with on everything 100%. Because there's nobody on earth, you know, that you're probably going to agree with 100%. But you can get enough to where you really feel comfortable. You know what I'm saying? You can get enough to where you feel comfortable. And the past couple of elections have just been bad. Like it's just, it really is a lesser of two evils. Hillary and Trump, we was like, come on, for real. Like, yeah, Trump is the more evil, but Hillary ain't that. And now you got Joe Biden has blatantly been just completely disrespectful to Black people. Like just blatant. And just been saying, and the thing about it is he knows that for a lot of us, we gonna complain, we gonna get mad, we gonna be angry. And when it come down to November, niggas gonna be bubbling in Biden. Not because we really like him, but because we see the harm that the current. And the thing about it is, he don't care. He don't care whether you are happy and you bubble in his name, or you sad and you bubble in his name. As long as he get there, that's all he care about. And I'm like, I'm so tired of this lesser of two evils, the dookie water or the diarrhea water. Like, that is not freedom to me. That is not something that I want to encourage my people to go be a part of. That's like when Dr. King said, I feel like I'm integrating my people into a burning building. It's like I'm preaching all of this that sounds good, and look at what I'm telling them to go be a part of. Like, why? Why do I want my people to be a part of that? Go vote. Tell people to, and I'm the most votingest. I ain't gonna run down my resume. I don't need to do all that. But anybody who know me know what I do and what I've been doing. And I've been a part of the whole voting and political process. I've been doing this thing for a long time. And I'm gonna tell you, like, I really feel some kind of way. Like, I'm not all gung-ho about it because I'm like, man, what are we telling our people to participate in? What kind of choices are we giving them? You know what I'm saying? I would feel much better about being a part and, you know, doing the voting registration drives and all that stuff if I'm really if I'm teaching my people to be a part of it holistically about not just choosing out of the people that we tell them to, you know, that white folks essentially tell us to choose from. That's not voting. That's not voting power. That's not, you know, really, to me, that's not democratic power. Democratic power is when you pick and you train and you choose, you put the person that you want in that position to be a Democratic candidate, and then you push that person all the way to the white. To me, that's power. You know what I'm saying? And if we're not putting our people in a position to do that, but we're just waiting around until the next person pull up or the next person get enough support from all these different people to then be the candidate, and then we say, all right, now you got to vote for these people. Nah, man, that's not that to me is not what I think our so-called founding fathers, or even when you talk about black folks in our fight, you know, for enfranchisement, and our fight against disenfranchisement, I feel like that's not what they wanted for us. That's not what they were looking for. That's not what they were fighting for and marching for and dying for these kind of choices, for Joe Biden versus Trump. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel like that, and I don't feel Kamala Harris is necessarily as bad as them, but you know, we do have to be honest about, you know, her past history as well. At the end of the day, you know, I'm probably still gonna, you know, ride with the sister, but these, you know, Dookie water versus diarrhea water, I like that. I like that analogy because, you know, yes, while it doesn't leave a good image in your head, or, you know, to think about drinking Dookie water, it's like, but that's how it feel though. That's really how it feel in November when we had to go vote for Hillary. It was like,
it's unpalatable.
Bro, like, I don't want to do this. You should feel like that in the democratic process.
I actually got like a little emotional just now thinking about something, because there's so often that I hear, oh, you know, our ancestors died for this like right to vote. And when I think about freedom struggles that have occurred, like Black freedom struggles that have occurred throughout the course of like US history, like I think our ancestors had such a bigger vision of what freedom is. Than what we're associating it with today. And you know, the reason I like started to get emotional with the situation that I was like creating in my head was like, you know, if at some point I had a kid and I died in a freedom struggle like today, 50 years from now, I would hate for any descendant of mine to say, well, my ancestor died for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Like that made me sad to think about, you know, even in this moment where it is overwhelmingly clear that Black people are calling for a complete overhaul of so many systems, the economic system, criminal justice system, like so many of these systems that continue to have the literal like foot on our necks, like literally we're calling for like an overhaul and abolishment of these sorts of systems, but yet the potential leaders of our potential political leaders have been very clear, like, oh yeah, that's not gonna happen. Like, we know what you're asking, like it's clear what you're asking for, but we're not gonna give you that. And to think that anyone would say that any of us died for that to occur, that just makes me incredibly sad.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I don't think that I think that when we bring up our ancestors, I think that when we talk about, you know, the sacrifice and all those different types of things, we also have to go back to look at them like how we look at how we at least encourage people to look at Black women. It's diverse. There's a lot of variance in those sacrifices. Some of our ancestors sacrificed and gave their lives for the right to vote. And then some of them sacrificed and gave their lives for the right for us to create our own nation. And some of them sacrificed and gave their rights, you know, and gave their lives and got put in prison, you know, for other, you know, ideas as it related to liberation and freedom. You know what I'm saying? Some of our ancestors started out voting and then decided not to vote. Some of them, you know, didn't vote, and then the first time they voted for Obama. And all of it is relevant. I believe all of it is relevant. I believe all of it is important. I believe all of it is significant. And I believe all of it contributes to where we are today. But I think sometimes we pick and choose which one we want to, you know, talk about and use to push our own agenda. And we have to take into account, where was politics at that time? What were our people doing at that time? How, you know, what choices did they have during that time? Did they have choices that really could have benefited Black people in a major way? And shortly after the Civil War and Reconstruction, they did. There were choices and there were things that were happening during that time that Black folks were seeing. They was like, yo, if we could get to the ballot box, yo, we could push that in Mississippi. We could push that in Louisiana. We could push that in these places where just a decade ago we were enslaved, and now we got schools and now we got businesses. And if we can get some of that Freedmen's Bureau money down here through the ballot, man. And so there were clear and present options that existed that if you voted, boom, this if we could help control this could happen. That's not as clear today, I don't believe. And maybe a politician and, you know, somebody who's a much more of a political pundit than I am could check me, but I don't think that's as clear now. Because when you look at how people lived in concentrated poverty under Reagan and under Daddy Bush and under Clinton and under Baby Bush and under Obama and under Trump, if you look at the poverty rate, while the poverty, I want to say the poverty rate has decreased, but the number of people in poverty has increased during that time. It's, you know what I'm saying? And while the number of people in poverty has increased during that time, it's just kind of like, it's really not helping. You know what I'm saying? In the long run, you know, it helps a certain class, certain groups of people. But I mean, we have to really look at that. So I'm not saying that voting is not important. And in certain situations, I think it can be more beneficial than in other situations. But when we're critiquing people about the voting process and the democratic process and who they're voting for and why they're voting and all this and that, and comparing it to what just going off what you was talking about, Jackie, what our ancestors did, we got to think about this. We got to think about this, and we got to contextualize it in a different way. Because like you said, in 50 years, I don't want my grandchildren to be like, this, I was dying for this choice. You know what I'm saying? I was dying for this choice.
I think when it comes to our imaginations as Black people, in terms of how we think about freedom, how we think about liberation, we oftentimes center oppression, and therefore we also center whiteness, and we center the oppressor. And so even in our imagined states of liberation, I think we go as far as oppression takes us. In other words, I feel like our imaginations, in a sense, are occupied by oppression. So can we even imagine liberation outside of even thinking about that? Right. Like, what does it mean to be a free Black person in America?
Right.
You know, like, and I think and it's like, how do you live? It's the white gaze. Like, how do we live outside of the white gaze? I remember talking to a friend about it, and they were even using an example of like what troubles some people about like Will and Jaden's kids, like with Willow and Jaden. It's just because like they have permission to be free Black kids. It's like we've never seen like just free Black kids. They're not concerned about the white gaze or about oppression or those types of things. So it's just like, what does it really mean to be Black and free? Where I'm not even thinking about whiteness. I'm not even thinking about oppression. I'm not even thinking about voting necessarily or political correctness of politics. I'm just thinking about imagining what it means to just enjoy my life. And I think that's interesting, and I don't know what to do with that. And I saw this, I wonder if y'all saw this meme too, where they were like, you know how people say that you're your ancestors' wildest dreams? And they were like, you are far from your ancestors' wildest dreams, working your 9 to 5, hating your life, eating this, doing this. And it's just like,
so real. That is not what they dreamt for you.
Your ancestors' wildest dreams? That was a nightmare. You know, that is not something that they were thinking for you. Wow. So it's just like, I think it's kind of funny. So I'm just wondering, like, how can I break free my imagination from to just even think like my ancestors, even though a lot of I imagine that they were like, they were trying to survive whiteness. Mm. What if I take whiteness out the equation? Mm. Or I try to.
I mean, there's a whole theory around that. I mean, Afrocentricity theory. By Malefi Asante in 1980 talks about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the whole point of the theory, is to reimagine, to reimagine Black life outside of our most recent historical kind of stories. You know what I'm saying? Our most recent history. Like how can we look at, right, what life would be like for Black people outside of, the Ma'afa, right? Outside of slavery, outside of lynching and Jim Crow. Let me see if I could find the actual.
I would love for you to send me that.
It says, or this is what Dr. Asante says, the Afrocentrists asked the question, what would African people do if there were no white people? In other words, what natural responses would occur in the relationships, attitudes towards the environment, kinship patterns, preferences for colors, type of religion, and historical reference points for African people if there had not been any intervention of colonialism or enslavement? And so that's Afrocentricity. Right? You know what I'm saying? And like, there's a whole theory, there's a whole way in which we can address this stuff that's already been laid out. It was laid out in the 70s and compiled in 1980 to help us do that. You know what I'm saying? And so I think there's a path that has been forged for us to, to look at that and to look at politics and Joe Biden and Kamala, and all
which way is it?
Kamala.
Is Kamala or Kamala? It's Kamala.
Kamala.
Okay.
Kamala.
I've been going back and forth.
So yeah. Anyway,
well, folks.
Yo, this was good. Good stuff. Ooh. So what's the conclusion? CardiB, Beyonce, or Kamala?
All
and Megan Thee Stallion. Don't forget Meg.
Oh, Megan. Yeah, I'm sorry, Megan. My bad. Yeah, Megan.
All four.
All of them.
All of them. The four horsewomen of the something. Yes.
The Mount Rushmore of Black women.
Yes. Coming to destroy anti-Black womanness. Yes, right. Those four horsewomen.
Most definitely.
Woo! That's a hard one. Are we gonna add Candace Owens to Mount Rushmore?
Mm-mm. We ain't gonna add on there. Mm-mm. We ain't gonna put Kylie Jenner. She was in the middle of the whole.
I mean,
that what we're not going to do is colonize our conversation with anything about Kylie Jenner. I wanted to add to it, but I'm like, she's not going to enter this space.
She's not going to enter this space. I'm going to edit that out. We're going to edit that out. We're going to edit
2 surgeries from being a Black woman herself. So
she is the new Rachel. But even saying like we choose all of them, Kamala, it's a hard one, but like we said, it's kind of It's kind of dookie water.
Well, yeah, y'all. It's been another episode. Street Academy Podcast.
Yay! One
foot in the academy, 1 foot in the streets.
Hey.
All hearts and minds are clear. Everybody good. Everybody feeling great. Feeling good. Feeling great.
Great. How are you?
Cool. All right. So we'll see y'all on the next episode. We out. Oh, I just want to end this by saying, if y'all not watching Moesha on Netflix, bro, that thing.
It's taking you back. It's
taking me back, bro. My homie texted me and was like, "Yo, I've been watching Moesha on Netflix." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I forgot it was up there." I ain't really tripping. I ain't had nothing to watch the other night. I'm like, man, let me just watch one of these episodes real quick. And I've been hooked, man. Not because it's like adult, you know what I'm saying? It's just been taking me back, bro. Like, for the music and the times. So, man, Netflix been having me on something. Yeah.
Listen, I've been on my John Grant watching something that y'all would not expect.
Oh, yes, what?
I've been watching Big Love.
What is that?
What is that?
Big Love is a show about a polygamist. I'm not sure if the show specifically says Mormon, but they live, I'm pretty sure, in Utah. And so it's a man and his 3 wives, but polygamy is like not socially accepted. So they have 3 separate houses, like right next door to each other. The backyards are connected. So by appearance, it looks like he has 1 wife because he like goes in and out of like that one door. But then he can go through the back and like go see his other wives. So, it's just a little bit of drama, a little bit of suspense.
Let's go.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
HBO, I see 2006 to 2011. The patriarch of
Big Love.
A patriarch of a fundamentalist Mormon family in contemporary Utah that practices polygamy.
Where is it? Is it on Netflix or Hulu or what's up?
It says HBO. Where else is it? Where else?
I'm not sure.
Interesting. I've never heard of this.
I don't know how I watched it years ago, but I don't think I finished it. Like wherever I was living at the time might have had like some free HBO or something, and so I saw some of the episodes.
But this wasn't reality TV. This was a drama series. Is that right?
It was a drama series.
Mm-hmm. You said it's 2016?
I'm sorry? It said 2011 to 2016.
I'm trying to think of where I was at that point. Anyway, wherever I was at the time had to have free HBO. So I saw like maybe a season or so. And I guess like the season that I saw was like pretty, HBO. There's just like a lot of drama, a lot of mess in their shows. And so classic HBO. And I remember like liking the show. And
let's go, Big Love. Okay. Jackie out here searching for a sister wife.
Oh. See, the way my spirit is set up there. I don't think that's for me.
Look, Jackie says she's gonna be, there's some hoes in this house. There's some hoes. If you see sister wife, you are out. Get out my house.
Hey. Wow.
Let's go.
I mean, like, okay. We got a backyard and some dookie water, if that's what you want. Or some diarrhea water.
Some diarrhea water. Choose.
What do you prefer?
Choose your mode of consumption.
Yeah.
Greatness, y'all. Well, look, this has been good. Oh, yeah, I think I already cut us out, so we good.
You did. Oh, the recording's still going.
Yeah, the recording's still going, but I think I said it's been another episode, y'all. Street Academy Podcast. We gonna do it.
Peace out. Peace out. A-Town down.
Peace.
Who else that you know got their feet upon the neck of the haters, the game and the devil like came in.